So we continue our series. On the last event, I was creating a MCP server, a model context protocol server, but I built it locally and connected to something called Claude Desktop. And that's, of course, not something you can go to production with. So on this today, I want to show how you deploy AI agents, the two different modes you can run them in, web or what is called a standard input-output, just very briefly, but I will go more in details on that. I will show two cases where we use them in production. One is connected to ChatGPT, and the other one to on Heroku's own infrastructure, which I find even more exciting. So yeah, let's roll. These are the things that I want to go through here. How to deploy it on Heroku. Then also Heroku has something called Heroku AI, which is a set of tools and resources they have enabled for us to work with these large language models and these AI agents in a structural manner. And I will also demo something called Heroku's own model context protocol server. Long story short, it's a plugin you install in your development environment, which enables you to use natural language to communicate with your production, with your cloud environment. And the powerful thing about that is that the agent then will have access to your code and it can deploy it, right? And therefore, it can also start debugging. A very, very cool tool. But let's take step by step. This is the diagram from last time, just to show the setup. We had the Claude Desktop. Everything in the stripe there was mine. The MCP server exposing tools. Feekin node package is basically just an implementation of the APIs to Feekin. And then you have an external system. But this accounting system could be any system, right? So that's very great. If you go to the next one. Yep. Just briefly how it works. You work with the client, you upload a receipt. That was the trivial example, and it creates the corresponding kjøpsutkast. Yep. Let's go to the next one. Here's the first thing I'm going to show. It's I'm going to deploy this application now to Heroku, running on HTTPS. Then the client will be ChatGPT. It will call what I have deployed on Heroku, and then it again calls the APIs to Feekin and returns the answer to ChatGPT. So I can take over the screen. And also everything I showed, I have coded, vibe coded. I haven't really written any code manually myself. So just a little bit for the little bit technical people here, I'm just briefly going to describe the structure. It has a shared, what I call the shared library, which is the implementation of the APIs of Feekin. And Feekin and any system, let me see, Feekin. Here we are. Almost every system today have a Swagger file describing the APIs in a structural manner. And if you just play a little bit with the URLs, you get the real file, which is the Swagger YAML, which looks like this. And here you see kind of like the APIs, what it expects as input, the models here, so forth. But the good things about this is that AI love tools that are structured, because then you can just sit and vibe code, implement the APIs, and it generates the code for you. So that is that package. And then the more interesting one is the Feekin model context protocol. This imports that shared model, and it has, so let me close this one. And it has a description of all the tools. And the tools you can always think about as APIs, right? That's what they really are. They have a schema where they tell you, let's say, for example, get all the kjøp in Norwegian, and it tells you this is what I expect as input. You can set what is optional and not. and the type, right? And then it returns something after. Here, since this is the description, the contract, and then when it gets invoked, the code will execute the command with the input, and then call the shared library as of the APIs through this method here. So very, very quickly how this is connected. Then we can go to the proc file. That is a description for Heroku settings files that describes how to, let me do it like this, how to start applications. So this one, people are familiar with that. This one I will describe in the next scenario. But you deploy it. I'm not going to do it now just to save some time. I will demo this, how you can deploy it automatically from the IDE here in the last part of the presentation. So let me go back to Heroku. Heroku works like you connect it to a repo and a branch, and then you tell it to deploy it, and it will start listening to them on the HTTP port. So if we open this app, this is what you will get. I didn't show you here, but I have added open auth, so it authenticates. I did that also with bytecoding. Of course, it didn't work first time. You have to always run a couple of iterations until it works. But the interesting thing here is that you see the tools it has available and the protocols. And in our case, it's the HTTP. We want to demo in ChatGPT. So let's do it. So let me take a new chat here. Then you go here, you go to settings, you go to apps and connectors. Here they have these predefined ones, but we want to have our custom one. I prepared a small logo to make it look nice. I call it Vegan AI. MCP server that enables you to communicate in a natural language with vegan. Then we have the server URL. I know it by heart, but just to show where things are coming from, I'm going to copy paste it step by step here. So I've set up a domain like this, and it's HTTPS. Then you have OAuth and no authentication. The reason I have it in developer mode is then it allows you to have no authentication. And I just did that when I was testing, but of course you can't have that in production. So then I will go back here and copy. As always, I'm exposing a secret, which I will change after the presentation. Always risks, because it has access to an external system, and then we create it. Sorry, I forgot to add MCP. This is the endpoint it uses to communicate with. I can actually show that briefly after, because I set up some examples in Postman.
Is that a convention in Heroku for the MCP, or is just the MCP a part of the server anyway?
The latter. It's a good point if other people call it differently. Bit uncertain about that, but I think it's a standard beyond Heroku. 80% sure of that. Yep. So here it's connected. You see it has the tools available. And then we can start talking with the system. Just purchases. Yeah, let's just start that. So here it asks, let's click a little bit on what the input is. So if you think about the AI's job is to collect all the parameters which you have defined in we can get purchases, right? So that was this one. Make it a little bit like this. So its job is to collect all the data it needs in order to make the request, to call the tool, and then kind of pass it further down the chain to the API. So it's good. This one is actually should be 0. I don't know why it says 1, but okay, let's just go with it, and it just gets the next page. So okay, let me just deny get. Okay, seems like it's get all the purchases with page 0. Okay, there it needs some adjustment. Okay. Yep, now that is better. Okay, 100 is probably too much. Should have been 10, but okay, fine. Yep. So here we get data from Vegan. Yeah, that's very good. I can also mention I like to see the logs. You have a set of logs is actually a bit tricky when it comes to. No, wait, it should actually come here. Now, okay, I can show that later. So that was the first demo. Any questions on this one? Yeah, John?
Yeah. I don't know if it was only me, but it was a kind of slow. Is it because of the API is too slow, or what's the reason it took so long? Because people today want that things should move instantly. So
I think it is with page, and you're raising a little bit good question, because I also noticed it's a bit too slow. I think this one was because the page size is too big. So let's write it with page 0 and page size 5, and let's see if it's faster now. Yeah. Okay, so it is faster, but I share your concern, Björn. I'm also a little bit surprised it's that slow.
yeah, it could be interesting to dig into where is the time spent. Is it the OpenAI that's the slow part, or is it the API, or what is it?
Yeah, good question. I don't have all the answers now, so I need to fine tune it, but it's very good questions.
I think that part of it is related to the way ChatGPT itself handles it. So it goes to a central server and all that. And once the I think the queries go probably fast, but how to present it and how to display it in the page is also something that it does. So I assume that for very trivial tasks, it will go slower than using a crude user interface. But let's say if you are using a database MCP, for instance, and ask, can you give me the average incoming invoices for February and March this year? I'm sure that it can create a query and it will give you the answer much faster than you would otherwise if the question is a little bit more complicated.
Yeah, I agree. And then one thing I focused here on is what the tool expects as an input. And then I just take the raw output from Figen, and ChatGPT presents it. And you see it varies how it presented. But it must exist a way to kind of like format what you get in Figen and return it in a more effective way. So that I looking forward to test out more in the future. Yeah. All right. Heroku AI. I like to kind of like keep it simple. They have a managed inference model, which give you access to a set of predefined models they have. I watched kind of like a 1 hour long YouTube video with one of the developers, the advocates, and he said that they were hosting actually the models themselves. That surprised me a bit, but so be it. How you do that is that you just search up the plugin like this, managed inference agent, and you can do that in UI. You can do it through the Heroku's MCP server, or you can using the CLI tools. When you have set that up, it looks like this. I created it with Claude. Claude is considerably better than OpenAI, by the way, for everything that is code related. Although I'm shocking the big difference. I actually wanted to show this demo MCP server to Claude, and they just wanted me to cut off an arm because it was so expensive to buy that plan that supported that one. But
the 4.5 is much better than this model, isn't it? That true.
I'm noticing when I work with everything that is programmer related, Claude is better.
Yeah, but the Claude's on a 4.5.
Yeah, I'm not into the details of kind of like the various versions.
Yeah.
So I just noticing when I'm programming and choosing a model, Claude is always.
Then you should use 4.5.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's way better than the older models.
Yeah. Cool. All right. So what do we see here? We see the model. We see how to kind of like provision and just to how to work from CLI. But here's the interesting part. You remember I set up this structure. So every time you start with something with prefix MCP, Heroku knows that this is an MCP server. And when you start it, my server has both support for listening to HTTP or just with standard input-output. And how my code detects that is that if the port is set, it's expect to run it in HTTP. If not, it runs it with standard input-output. So that's why you need to remove the port from the environment before you start up the application. And then you just attach the application. I already done it, but you just click here and choose kind of like attach this Figen AI, and it recognizes it straight away. And here you see that it communicates with standard input and output. And what the interesting part there is that the server is not running all the time. So when you call it from the UI, it spins up own what is called on-off Dino, kind of like spins up an own instance, which makes it very cheap also, and also more scalable, a lot cheaper first and foremost. So yeah, so that's step number 1. Step number 2 is Heroku has a chat, open source. I just forked it to do simple adjustments, and I deployed it to this application. It looks like this. And it's let me take here. And here in the configuration, again, I will rotate these keys after. It has environment variable, so it points to that specific managed inference model I defined in the other application, and also that it's hosted in EU. Then what was a bit strange with this repo was that I had to define explicitly each of the tools I wanted to work with, but that's fine. Then there are some advantages to that, because then you scope it a little bit down so it doesn't kind of like get confused. Should I call a tool? Should I ask the large language model something else? Get all purchases. Let's try it without page 0.
But you're not using the one-off Dino now, or did I miss something?
It is using the one-off Dino, so it spins it up.
Okay, so it spinned it up. That's why it was waiting.
Yeah, it makes sense. So definitely, I have to continue working with this to optimize it, more. I have to get proper logging, so I see how much time does it spend to spin it off, how much time does it spend on running my queries, and so forth. One struggle I had with the logging is that Heroku, when it starts the server, it types everything in standard input and that channel into nothing, right? So it's really hard to do logging. So I tried this wipe kind of like write to file, but then kind of how does Heroku's logflex get access to that file, and kind of like I didn't have time to.
There's something called there's a command called TEE. You may need to use that one that splits the standard out. TEE.
TEE, yeah.
No, TEE.
TEE. Ah, okay. Thank you. I will read about that. Very good. Yep. All right. So here it has, it runs it. So that's very good. I can show more examples here, but I think kind of like the principle is the same. So I will stop here. Then I can also show how it works. Okay, we can actually do it a little bit Postman. So here I'm connected directly to Beacon's Postman. So get me the purchase köpsutkast with ID like this. Now I have defined all of those. I want us to look here. So even though I selected all, it's smart enough to figure out which of those 3 ones I chose. It makes a request to here you see the events.
Yes, it's a WebSocket thing.
Yeah. Okay, I deleted the purchase draft. Okay, damn it. But let me rather show how it works with which API it actually calls. It calls this endpoint under the hood. I saw it wrapped it in I saw that it wrapped it in my URL, but the real one it uses under hood is this one. So I also set it up in Postman, and then I could kind of like run the queries.
What is the time where it spins down the instance of the language model, and will the language model spin new instances for each query, or will it? How many how many queries can it do at the same time? Or is it one by one?
I think it's one by one.
So if you have many questions at the same time, it spins out up as many as there is conversations.
It's a good question. You're thinking if you have a query that then should potentially invoke many tools.
No, if you have, let's say, you're hosting a chat service for your customers and many are using it at the same time, will it spin up one per chat?
That's a good question. I assume yes. But I also see the concern about time. And at the same time, I expect Heroku to have thought that one through. Yeah. That's how I understood it. But good questions. Because how else would it understand that comes in a lot of chat messages and that it should sort of combine them and send 3 almost simultaneously chat requests to one, do you know? So, yeah. Yeah. All right. Also, I set up these endpoints here as well. I know that we asked about what this path MCP is. So if you first log in, you get a token. I added then in the authorization. And then you can start kind of like initialize it, the client. You get output that it's set up. And then you can start using this JSON RPC to send own commands kind of like back and forth in Postman. So that is something really good to do to have more control. I need to set up kind of like more scenarios like this. Yeah. Okay. Let's test out the Heroku MCP. So we have our application here. Let's create a new application. Create a new application on Heroku. Name it Vegan AI demo. And which branch am I on here? And deploy the branch. Okay. So basically, this MCP server you install from the marketplace in Windsurf or Cursor. And after you have installed it and authenticated, it has access to your environment. Okay. It was a little bit stupid because I thought it should do it on my private account, but it should use Team Senior Dev. There is a credit card. So here you see it provisions a new one with the CLI. Then it add a remote Git repo and pushes the development branch there. You see it has access to the release log of Heroku. One thing I would like, I missed a little bit, it doesn't really have access to the application log. I'm not sure if that is a permission issue or if it's just too much data to feed into the AI. That is to be determined. But all right, with this prompt, it should now be on Heroku. If we go here, we have our Vegan AI demo. Let's see if it works. Voila, there you go. So that is what I wanted to share. What do you guys think?
Any questions so far?
I think the concept is very cool, actually. So I'd like to find out how we can speed it up to, get a better user experience.
Yeah.
But how much time? I wasn't attending at your last demo. But how much time have you spent to create an MCP server using Fiken's API?
So basically, when I learned this new technology, I had to spend a lot of time watching YouTube, reading through the documentation. Then I start implementing vibe coding, and then I do some errors because I'm thinking wrong, a little bit iterations. And after I have a better understanding of how it works, often I just scrap what I did previously, and then I start to do it again. And when I do it again, then it goes very fast. So
so if I gave you a new API now, and you should do it in another API and another company product.
Yeah.
So how long time you think will using vibe coding and get something up and running?
It's actually a very interesting question because I ran such a demo here. So I ran this yesterday, and then I said, implement the invoice API calls defined in the Swagger YAML, right?
You're not sharing your screen that you're referring to.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, so I ran this yesterday. I said, implement the invoice APIs defined in the Swagger file. Let me show you. Then it understands that it's the set of APIs it should implement, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then it ran for, let me see, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, okay, there's no timestamp here, but it ran for some minutes. And then it created everything. And then I deployed it. And it worked actually straight away. There's the tools.
So if I say, if possible to create something really valuable in less than 1 day, you know how to do it.
Yes. Yes.
Maybe I can add a comment to that. I tested a different tool, not Windsurf, but very similar. Couple of 3 months ago, I implemented a mini version of a gift card backend, just very limited functionality, but still. And I asked it to do the Swagger. I asked it to do database migrations and everything else, so connected to a real database. And it created a server for me that hosted these APIs. And then I created a new project. I need a front end that allows me to issue a gift card and to redeem a gift card from the user interface using this Swagger URL link. And then it and the original server annotated the endpoints very well, so it was very well described in natural language what each API did. And then the front end picked up these descriptions and implemented a flawless front end. I didn't add any security, but I mean, it did really good choices, and the speed is amazing. And to create an MCP server is just that is just a way to connect your service to the ChatGPT, and that is really a thin layer, I think. So it should be much quicker as long as there is no logic attached to it.
Yep. So when I work with these AI tools, I spend a little bit more time. If it's more production ready, I need to get more ownership to what it generates. So when I have small projects like this, I manage to skim it very quickly and it looks good. But when the size gets bigger, I need to take a little bit step back and just so I fully understand what goes on. I had a conversation with Olav. He challenged me and said I said, I struggle a little bit if they generate too much code and I don't have full control, how can I be responsible for the quality? And Olav challenged me on that. Do you really need to have that control? I still think the answer is yes, but I understood his question.
guess it depends on the test regime you have. So what I see is that if you ask it to when you write the tests, then it starts running the tests, and it changes the code and then changes the test so that everything works according to specification, and like a ping pong. And when it's finished, then maybe it has covered it with 100 tests. Can you be certain that everything is right, or do you accept the printed report it gave about the test regime he had implemented? In theory, you could trust the test, but do you really do it?
Yes, exactly.